Hello, history learners. I'm here to share fascinating stories from history in an audio format, perfect for listening while doing chores, studying, or just relaxing with something interesting in the background. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider subscribing for more history content like this. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode, where we'll explore a little of ancient Egyptian history. One of the most surprising facts in history is that the workers who built the ancient Egyptian pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, were probably not slaves at all. For a long time, popular culture showed pyramid builders as huge crowds of enslaved people forced to work under brutal conditions. Movies, novels, and even old textbooks repeated this idea so often that many people accepted it as fact. But modern archaeological discoveries have completely changed our understanding of how the pyramids were really built. The idea that slaves built the pyramids partly came from ancient Greek writers such as Herodotus, who visited Egypt thousands of years after the pyramids were constructed. Later historians repeated these stories, and eventually the image became deeply rooted in modern culture. However, archaeologists working near the pyramids during the late 20th and early 21st centuries uncovered evidence that tells a very different story. In the 1990s, archaeologist Mark Lehner and his research teams discovered what is often called the Workers' Village near Giza. This settlement contains sleeping quarters, bakeries, breweries, kitchens, storage buildings, and even what appeared to be medical facilities. The scale of the site suggested that thousands of laborers lived there in an organized community while construction was taking place. One of the strongest pieces of evidence came from the workers' diet. Researchers found huge quantities of cattle bones, fish remains, bread ovens, and beer-making equipment. Studies estimated that workers consumed thousands of pounds of meat regularly. In ancient Egypt, meat was expensive and considered high-status food. If these laborers had been enslaved workers with no value, historians believe they would never have received such rich nutrition. Another major discovery involved burial sites. Archaeologists uncovered tombs belonging to pyramid workers buried near the pyramids themselves. This was an extraordinary honor in ancient Egypt. Slaves would not normally be buried in such prestigious locations. Some skeletons also showed healed broken bones, meaning injured workers received treatment and were cared for long enough to recover. That suggests an organized labor system with medical knowledge and social support. Researchers also discovered graffiti left behind by work crews inside parts of the pyramids. Some groups gave themselves humorous or proud names such as Friends of Khufu or Drunkards of Menkaure. These markings suggest team identity and morale rather than forced anonymous labor. Historians think many workers may have been seasonal laborers who worked during the Nile River flooding season, when farms were underwater and agricultural work temporarily stopped. The logistics behind pyramid construction were astonishing. The Great Pyramid of Giza alone contains around 2.3 million stone blocks and originally stood about 146 meters tall. For centuries, people debated how ancient Egyptians could possibly have moved such enormous stones without modern machinery. Today, researchers believe they used massive ramps, sledges, ropes, and carefully organized labor teams. In 2013, archaeologists discovered another remarkable piece of evidence, a papyrus diary written by an Egyptian official named Mir. This document, often called the Diary of Mir, is considered one of the oldest surviving handwritten records in history. It described how workers transported limestone blocks along the Nile River for pyramid construction during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. The discovery gave historians rare direct evidence of the organizational systems behind the pyramids. Perhaps the most mind-blowing part of this story is the timeline. The pyramids are so ancient that they were already incredibly old during later famous periods of history. The Cleopatra VII Philopator lived around 2,500 years after the Great Pyramid was built. That means Cleopatra lived closer in time to the first moon landing in 1969 than she did to the construction of the pyramids. This changes the way many people think about ancient civilizations. The pyramid builders were not simply primitive workers using brute force. They were part of a highly organized society capable of engineering, logistics, medicine, architecture, and workforce management on an enormous scale. The discoveries at Giza continue to reshape our understanding of one of humanity's greatest achievements, proving that archaeology can completely overturn ideas that people believed for centuries. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this journey into history. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another fascinating story from the past. And if there's a historical topic you'd like to hear about, feel free to leave a suggestion in the comments. Your ideas might inspire a future episode.